Welcoming Hawkeye Nation to another edition of our post-game coverage for Iowa men's basketball as your Hawkeyes. Boy, color is looking really strange here this evening. Hopefully that settles down. Looks like we're having a attack of some sort, a solar attack. My goodness. Get the saturation right here. Hopefully that will settle down in a second. I don't think I've seen that. Doug, let's add Doug. Doug, can you see why do I look like I'm having a solar attack here? Do you see what I'm seeing?
Look, I see, some different colors. Not quite right, but it's fine.
Well, I'll tell you what, Doug. I don't know if this team is quite right. We're going to talk about it. I added you in right away because of the picture, because I was confused as to what's going on with my saturation issue here, but we'll try to figure that out. But Doug, I guess in the meantime, you're a huge basketball junkie. You're one of our regular callers that likes to be a part of the show night in and night out.
Love Hawkeye basketball.
You do, absolutely do. I give you credit for that. And everybody, if you're listening to this on demand or didn't watch the game, the Hawkeyes defeating Southern on Big Ten Plus, 89-74. Comfortable victory. And that's two comfortable victories.
Yep.
And you combine that with the exhibition victory, it's three comfortable victories. But, Doug, I don't know what to make of this team right now. I really don't know what to make of this team right now.
Well, you think they should win these games by probably a bigger margin.
Probably.
Peyton having 6 turnovers, your senior leader having 6 turnovers, that one was the stat. I'm glad you put that in his stat line because that one was the most mind-boggling stat I thought of all the stats, that your senior leader had 6 turnovers. They seem like they're going through the motions of playing against teams that they know these are very athletic teams, but they're not skilled teams. Does that make sense? Like the Southland teams and the SWAC teams, these guys are at that level not because of athleticism, but more due to the fact that they really don't have the same skill set. But these are really good athletes, and they're spreading Iowa out. And Iowa does not have the lateral quickness to defend these teams. They still don't defend a ball screen very well. So these aren't representative of really, I don't think, of how good Iowa is, because I'll say this. If you tell me Iowa will have 18 threes, I will bet money on Iowa winning most games.
Yeah. Well, the problem is tonight, Doug, they got out-rebounded.
Yep. A smaller team that looked quicker.
That is the biggest problem. Say whatever you just said, and I've said since day one here, and day one wasn't all that long ago, but I said this team is going to be very dependent on the three-point shot. I stand by that. But to add on to that sentiment, I think this team is going to be very dependent on how it rebounds. And unlike three-point shots, which I think will fall more often than not, I question whether or not they can rely on rebounding, especially without Traore. Because the numbers say that Seydu is the best rebounder on the team. Yeah, I know he played at a lower level last year, but as a freshman, you're getting 8 boards a game at the D1 level. That's impressive. They need to get him back for big-time play. Once they hit Wazoo and Molina, I don't know much about Wazoo, and you maybe do, but
it's basically Eastern Washington of last year. So their coach came from Eastern Washington. They have 4 players from Eastern Washington, including their best player of last year. So if you wanted to study them, you have to study Eastern Washington. But they gave up a lot of points to a team from I believe it's one of the Portland schools. I always get the 2 Portland schools mixed up. They don't play Portland or Portland State, and they won by 8 points. They scored Washington State scored 100, and Portland State scored 92. So that's a lot of points to be given up to a Big Sky or WCC team.
Well, some would say that 74 is too many to give up at home to Southern too. So fair enough. Now I don't know. One thing I've always wondered about Ken Pom is how Ken Pomeroy comes up with his preseason ratings. Perhaps the system he uses for that, Doug. But I don't even want to look at Ken Pom for where Southern is. Maybe I'll do that. But, one game in, we know they lost to South Dakota here a couple of days ago. And by the way, Iowa beat Southern by 15. South Dakota beat them by 14. So maybe next Tuesday is going to be a bit of a challenge. Here's the good news. They get a few days off.
Yep.
I hope that they can really take a step forward. 2 games at home, comfortable victories against mediocre competition. But there are some concerning things that we've seen begin to become a trend on this team. One being lack of production from Laji Dembele. I don't know what he's doing out there. 2, lack of scoring from Brock Harding. I understand he's going to be a facilitator, but in my honest opinion, Doug, I know you like the 6 assists, no turns. I think Drew Thelwell has looked like the better option. I just think he's looked like the better option. He's more under control. He's a better offensive threat. He's certainly a better defender and more athletic. Brock, I think one moment tonight that really stood out for me with Brock, of course, he made the 1-3, but you have the moment where he gets mismatched on somebody inside. That guy's got 6-7 inches on him. And I mean, it's like watching a high schooler try to back down an elementary school kid. That's what it looked like. That's how small he is. And this is a Southern team. I don't even know how big the guy was. This is a Southern team that's not all that big. I just think that teams are going to figure out ways to put him in very compromising defensive positions once we hit conference play, and that certainly is potential for trouble.
Yeah, a lot of the things that you've said, with Laji, you said he needs to be a power forward. He needs to be, if he's 260 pounds, he needs to be 260 pounds. He needs to go down there and be Karl Malone. Go down there and play down low.
60 pounds?
Yeah, I believe so. He put on about 15, I think.
What's the
over 250?
What's the point of all that weight? What's the point of all that weight if we're playing fast and he's just going to hang out on the outside on offense?
255.
So what's the point of all that weight if all he's going to do is hang out on the perimeter?
Yeah, exactly. And he needs especially if he's going to be the backup 5, he has to rebound. One of the things I want to give credit to one thing, though, because we're talking about rebounding, and he shouldn't be our second best rebounder, but he is. Peyton is a very good rebounder for his position. You don't want Peyton as your power forward, but Peyton is a very good rebounder.
Boy, and they need him. They need every one of his rebounds.
Yep.
And I don't know what bringing Seydou back is like, because frankly, that's what's so maddening about this is maybe he's back next Tuesday. It sounded like they thought he might have been back tonight, and he was not even dressed, I don't believe. So they need to get him back for Tuesday. Because if you don't get him back for Tuesday, then you're throwing him into the furnace, so to speak, against a Power 4 team in Wazoo and Moline. That's not the time to get him back. I think he needs a game under his belt. But I don't know what type of differential. Can he give you 7-8 rebounds a game at this level? I don't know if he's going to get enough minutes to do that.
That's what Cory, you always tell my thunder sometimes. That's exactly what I was going to say. It depends on how much you want him to play against Washington State that he plays in the South Dakota game. I mean, if he's only going to play spot minutes, then the South Dakota game doesn't really matter. But yeah, for him to be get the rebounds, he's only minutes. So I hope that he gets the minutes that he needs, because Cooper Koch will, as good a shooter as they keep on talking about him being a stretch 4. You can't play Price at 4. You could play Peyton at 4, but I wouldn't play Peyton at 4. Lodgy seems not to want to play 4. Why
did he gain all the weight? Why did he gain all this weight if you just went and hang out in the perimeter and be a big 3? I don't get that. And being a stretch 4 doesn't mean you can't bang down low. Let's think of a good example of a stretch 4. Can we think of a good example? I don't want to use some like Giannis example.
I mean, Dirk, your guy from the map.
Yeah, I don't want to use Dirk, but the thing with Dirk, and that's why it's hard when you start using superstars as examples, because Dirk is just a freak shooter. Dirk wasn't that good of a defender, but Dirk was a good rebound.
I would say Jack Nungy, maybe, going back to, if you remember,
Jack Nungy hung out on the 3-point arc too much as well.
Yep.
Maybe that's
kind of MO of a lot of them.
I guess that's just Fran ball. That's just part of being a 7-footer, a stretch 4 who's oversized. Now, Lodgy's not that tall, but a stretch 4 in the Fran system, it basically just means you're hanging out on the outside. To me, a stretch 4 means a guy who's hopefully big enough to kind of give you some size alongside somebody bigger on the interior, but also can step out and hit shots. Doesn't mean they're just hanging out there the whole game. And I don't know. I left tonight, Doug. The other night we did our post-game show, and after the game, after the show, I kind of left thinking it's game 1. I don't really say much about the exhibition. It's against a good D2 team, a lot of new faces. Now I'm like, okay, 2 games in plus an exhibition. Now I'm not getting impatient, but I'm like, I didn't see enough tonight to make me feel good. Yeah. I don't feel horrible. I just don't feel good. I don't think we're seeing enough from Lodgy. I don't know what are we seeing from Lodgy? What are we seeing, Doug? What has he done?
He did get 8 rebounds tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. You just gave something. He gave them 8 rebounds tonight, and they still got out rebounded. How is that possible?
Because you're either Owen and Lodgy were on the court together a lot. Well,
here's part of the problem. Here's part of the problem, Doug. Brock is not going to get you any rebounds. Nope. Josh Sticks ain't going to get you no rebounds. So far, Cooper Koch, he only played 9 minutes tonight. He had 1 rebound. Felwell's not going to get you any rebounds. Man, that's why I think they have to play Traore a lot. Yeah. They have to play him at least 12, 13 minutes a game on the regular.
Well, you're upset with me saying that, but if you look at – because you and Ryan talked about and France always – can use the word full of it. Fran says 13 players. We played, 8 tonight? So,
played 9.
So he's going to play Traore, and that'll probably be where he cuts off the rotation. And that's what it looks like. So, because I don't know why Evan or Carter didn't play, but he must not have seen, and neither one of them. I think Evan can give you rebounds, but I don't know what Carter can bring more than what the other ones have.
Evan gave them less than 2 minutes tonight. Less than 2 minutes on a night where Owen Freeman had 4 fouls. What does that what does that tell you? On a night where there's no Traore and Owen's got 4 fouls and Fran plays Evan Bronze less than 2 minutes in a game they basically led from start to finish. That is
Evan did play though, right?
Evan played 1 minute and 52 seconds.
Because I barely saw him. Okay.
No, it's just I don't know that I've ever. Here's what I'll say: it's Fran says the whole we can play 13 guys thing every year, but Doug, I don't know that I've ever seen Fran shorten a rotation this quickly. Now Traore's out, but do you recall, especially when you have these early gimmicky games, do you recall seeing him shortening a rotation like he has so far to this point? I don't recall.
Nope. No, not. And I've watched about every game Fran has had. I mean, even if I've had DVR it, I don't ever remember him going to under 10, especially going to 8, because, I mean, yeah, Evan played, but Evan barely played. And that's what I thought Evan would get anyway with spot minutes anyway. But, yeah, that's quick to go to an 8-man rotation. Now, we'll hopefully get, Seydou Traore back, and that'll give us a 9-man rotation, and hopefully someone that wants to bang inside and get rebounds. I mean, yeah, as all of you are aware, he averaged 8 rebounds a game at Manhattan. I mean, that I know it's Manhattan, but
as a freshman,
as a freshman,
yeah,
and I think his plus 40 numbers were really good for it's like 13 plus. I don't know. So he's a good rebounder at that level, and so hopefully that translates.
And real quick, just so people, some of these games against the likes of Southern and South Dakota are going to be shorter post-game shows here on the channel. And we don't have, right now, there's no other callers online, so I'm happy to keep you on here for a couple minutes, Doug. But let me just say this. I want to make a couple of notes because I know sometimes I've been criticized in the past because we get into callers and there's not enough analysis. I think, Doug, when you call in, you're bringing analysis, which I appreciate. But let me just say this as it relates to what I took away from the game, and I always take notes each and every night. I mentioned Dembele. I'm frustrated with him offensively. That goes without saying. Jess Settles is a big sloppy homer, and I love Jess. But when he makes the comment, Iowa has played good defense tonight, no, they didn't. They did not play good defense tonight. There were stretches where they were okay. There were also stretches where they were out of sorts. And Dembele, going back to Lodgy for a second, I'm going to be critical again. He gets off his feet too much. Remember we had this problem with Owen Freeman last year, leaving his feet. And I watched Lodgy get pulled in on pump fakes, and then he's swatting down. Iowa's post players have got to figure out how to curb that. That has to stop because they are not deep enough down there. They do not have post depth. And even when Traore comes back, the fact that Evan Bronze is basically the backup 5, or was the backup 5 until tonight, and now it seems like it's Lodgy. But then Owen Freeman and Lodgy have 7 combined fouls. You just can't have that against Southern. I just, that does make me worry.
Yeah, I thought the depth issues would be in the backcourt, and it definitely looks like it's in the front court. They have lots of those 6'7", 6'8" shooters. Price having a great big night, which we haven't talked about. Doesn't give either of us, I don't think, any big ooh, he's going to go off for the rest of the season. I don't want to speak for you, but what do you think Price's night?
I have a question for you, Doug.
Okay.
This didn't get brought up the other night. Why did Chris Taggio play on Monday?
Yes, we did. You mentioned at the end of your show. I don't know why you burned his red shirt. I don't know why you don't play him now. But again,
his red shirt. So it does, for the record, so people know, it doesn't matter what happens from here on out. The red shirt, there is no quarter of the season rule like in football.
Yep.
So unless he gets hurt, like tomorrow, and we don't want that to happen, his red shirt is burned. Now, maybe red shirts are just overrated. I remember I had a conversation with Kasheen Alexander the other day. She said the same thing for women's basketball. They don't use red shirts in women's basketball unless there's a serious injury. But when I saw Chris Taggio step onto the court with like 5 minutes left in that game, I'm like, am I watching this right? It shocked me, especially given the fact that he didn't play in the exhibition. Now, maybe he was dinged up in the exhibition. He doesn't see the floor tonight. All I've heard in the offseason was that Chris Taggio was struggling to get acclimated, and it was going to take him some time. And that screamed redshirt.
Yep.
But here's my only reaction to that, Doug. My only takeaway from that decision on Monday, and I could be totally off on this, but as much as Fran wants to preach they have 13 guys he can play, you and I both know, A, that's not true. And B, contrary to that statement he made preseason, what I'm starting to see here 2.5 games in, I'm calling the exhibition a half game, 2.5 games in, I'm seeing a team that may be one of Fran's thinnest teams.
Yes.
I think they're as not deep collectively as we've ever seen. Because you say, well, they're not as they're deeper at point at in the front court or in the back court than they are in the front court. They're not really deep there either. Like, it's Brock and Drew, and then you got to kind of go to Josh Dix, who's not a natural point. Like, and Cooper Koch is not playing. He's very young. It's going to take him some time, but his minutes dwindled tonight. He ended up with just 8 minutes and 43 seconds on the night. So even though they played, 9 guys, one guy played for 1:52 and another guy played for 8:43. It's just incredible. And that means you're going to get, nights like this, Peyton Sandfort, 35 minutes. Owen Freeman played just 21 because of the 4 fouls. Lodgy logged 28, 42 on a night where I didn't think he played very well. Josh Dix, 36. Price played 28 off the bench. So I think this is a very unthin team, a very thin team. Or excuse me, undeep team, a very thin team.
Yep. Depth is not something that we are on the same page. We'll see what happens with Seydu and his minutes, and because that could be a piece that we're definitely needing and wanting. And if he can come in and do some of the things that we think he can do, we should be okay.
All right. Can we both agree on this? And we do have another caller here waiting.
You're fine.
But can we agree on this, Doug? As of right now, and it's too early to call it, but as of right now, this does not look like a team. This does not look like the team we thought it would look like. I think most of us that follow this team consistently would have guessed preseason this is probably at least a tournament team. The way they look so far, I don't think they are a tournament team to this point, but it's too early to call. I'm just saying what I see at this point. They don't look like a tournament team.
Well, let's watch what they do after they play Washington State. I had one trivia thing, and I'm going to get off. Washington State was where George Raveling coached before he coached at Iowa. For people because I've been linking Washington State up. I will probably not be calling in after next Tuesday's game because we're going to it, but I'll probably call and talk to you after Washington State because we're not going to Moline. And the last time they played in Moline was that NIT game against DePaul. And I might put that up on your Facebook page or something. I am very curious what they do against Washington State. Washington State's more of a traditional team. These teams just like I said, the teams from the Southland and the SWAC just make Iowa look so unathletic, and they're just quicker. It's hard to take. They're kind of the teams that are the kryptonite. Like, if we're playing against a Summit League team, I actually have more hope against South Dakota just because they have the 7-footer from Dubuque, but I think South Dakota they'll win by 20 against South Dakota. And these 3 games in the Kenny Arnold Classic are what they are. They're we'll get to know a lot because on the 22nd they play Utah State, and by the 22nd hopefully we know more. As I repeating what I said, but the most important game is that first Big Ten game at home against Northwestern. You cannot start off 0-2 in the Big Ten again. So,
and just so we are aware, Washington State right now in KenPom is 116, and neither Utah nor Utah State are inside the top 50. So none of those games. This sounds crazy that I'm saying this because I just got done saying I'm not impressed with this team to this point. They don't look very deep. They don't look as good as we thought. I don't even think they're a tournament team right now. Thankfully, the tournament selection show is not on November 8th. But none of those games are games Iowa should lose because they're basically playing home games. They should be playing home games, at least in Moline and in Sioux Falls. I don't know about Kansas City. That'll be interesting because
it's a doubleheader too.
Huh?
That's the only ones Wichita State and St. Louis play after them.
Right. So there's going to be a lot of tickets sold to those two schools.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting to see. But I stand by what I said a couple of nights ago, Doug. This team should sweep the non-conference, with the exception being Iowa State.
Yep.
But I got to see some serious improvement. And I hope this next Tuesday we see it, because it's a little bit of a, you get Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, all hopefully look back at these last couple of games and make some changes and get Traore healthy. Hopefully,
getting Sadu back, and again, this team will improve. Like I said, when the stat I took from your stat line is 6 turnovers by Peyton, it's an off game, and they were up by 21 or 22 with about 2 minutes to go, and they hit a couple shots. So again, thank you for the post-game show. Hopefully I add some. I'll see you probably. Good luck tomorrow. Hopefully have a good show. Anyone traveling to LA, that would be a really cool trip. I will talk to you after the Washington State game, hopefully.
Hey, Doug. Appreciate it, sir. And let me just say this, to be very clear. I don't want to, we went like 25 minutes and I haven't brought up Price Sanford. Price was phenomenal tonight. There are going to be nights where this team just reins it in from 3 and wins because they can't miss. With the 2 Sanford brothers who have the potential of just not missing. Drew Thelwell showed tonight he looks like an adequate 3-point shooter, and he shot 5 of them. To me, that's more of a sign of confidence than it is of someone who's shot happy or hunting shots, because he's not doing that. He's taking good looks and looked confident. That was brought up during the broadcast. And even Owen Freeman made a 3 tonight. So I'll continue to say it. This team is going to be reliant on the 3-point shot. But the biggest questions to me are, can they figure out depth in the front court? And I don't know where that comes from other than Traore. If Sadu's not the answer, I don't know what is. And then, rebounding. I just don't know. What you're going to get with Iowa defensively. They're just not going to be able to bring it athletically compared to a lot of teams they play, even some of these mid-majors. Doug brought that up with teams like Southern and teams like Commerce. I can't believe I'm saying that, but that's just the reality. Those teams have better athletes. So we just lost James. All right, let's bring James into the conversation. James, welcome.
I didn't even know I was on. My bad. I didn't hear nothing.
You're good.
You were talking, so I thought you was talking about the game, so that's why I didn't say anything. But it was a good win. Obviously, like you said, the 70 points just gave me. But the one thing people are saying is we look unathletic against these guys. But if we look unathletic against these guys, think about how unathletic we're going to look in the Big Ten, because the Big Ten is way more athletic.
But what Doug said is fair. The quickness of some of these mid-majors is different. So, they're not, just as a kind of a layman's way of explaining this, and this, James.
Yeah.
Big Ten is going to oftentimes give you, they're going to be athletic guys, right?
Yeah.
They're also going to be bigger guys. So size-wise, you're going to come, I think you're going to have more situations where Owen and Lodgy are getting called for fouls down low as opposed to out on the perimeter and the mid-range. So it's just a different type of athleticism.
They're more smaller and quicker because they can't recruit as many big guys because
you're going to see games like this where guys are just blowing around Iowa. You may not see that as much in the Big Ten. There's going to be some games, right? There's quick guards in the league, but I think you're going to see it more highlighted on the glass. And that's what we've seen in games against Illinois in the past, games against Iowa State, where Iowa's getting out punched on the glass by 20, 30 boards. To me, that is the most startling stat from tonight. And Iowa does win this game by 15. But to me, the most startling stat tonight, to Doug's point, the turnovers from Peyton, you can kind of attribute to an off night, but you cannot get out rebounded against a mid-major in Southern and a team that doesn't bring it as far as, not that Iowa's huge, right? They're not playing Riley Mulvey, but you cannot beat on the glass against this team. So to me, that's got to be the biggest concern at this point.
For sure, and I also feel like Doug said, South Dakota has a 7-footer from Dubuque, so it'll be interesting to see that matchup with Owen, just because the size difference from what we've had. in comparison to these last two games, the teams haven't had a 7-footer, right? So with South Dakota having a 7-footer, and him being from Iowa is gonna make it a little bit more. You know how it is when you play in the state of Iowa, obviously, but
And he was recruited by Iowa, if I'm
yeah,
not mistaken.
yeah, you're right. But I'm saying in general, he's gonna give him more motivation to play well as well. But that matchup might be a little bit better for Owen just because it's gonna be more inside presence, probably because I know he doesn't shoot as well. So it might be a little bit more of a better game for Owen for sure. But like you said, Price was really good tonight, and for him to be the leading scorer is great off the bench. And obviously, game like this games like we said, I think the other day, to get his confidence right, to keep his confidence right, as that point of like you keep building your confidence up if you shooting this well. And obviously, when you get to Big Ten play, you're not going to shoot 5 from 3 or whatever it was, right? You're not going to shoot that right, but like if you have the confidence that you can make them, it gives you better confidence that the shots are going to go in when you're shooting them, if that makes sense.
And I think the other, for people that say, well, how are you complaining about a 15-point win? I'm not complaining about the 15-point win, but we have to look at these games early with a very large magnifying glass and with a very fine comb, because like I'm looking at Iowa's stats, they shot 45% from 3. They were 18 of 40. And they got beat on the glass and only won by 15 against a team that's outside the top 200 in KenPom. And it's very early. And I know.
But obviously, you only have 2 games of sample size, so you kind of picking out of those 2 games of sample size. What I mean by that is like you have to kind of nitpick a 15-point loss in the fact of you're only 2 games into the year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if Iowa had lost this game? I mean,
yeah.
This would be a totally different. So yeah, there should be nitpicking. We're not going to come on here and talk about how great the team is. That's Big Ten Plus's job, not ours.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was hoping to get Seydoux back tonight. I think that's my biggest disappointment leaving the game. I still think you want to talk positives. Price looks like the better shooter of the two Sanfords, frankly. Peyton is a better player right now, but Price looks like a more consistent shooter from outside. And Peyton's going to shoot more volume. I think Price is just a little bit more.
That's what Peyton has been, though. Kind of that streaky shooter.
Yeah.
And if Price,
his MO.
Price, you don't know what he's going to be. He's still a sophomore, right? He's a sophomore. Is he sophomore, right? Sophomore, right, or something like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So like for him, he's still young enough to where you don't know what he can turn out to be. You know what I mean? Like Peyton, he's a streaky shooter, but when he gets hot, right? Like he's one of those countries. Like when he gets hot, he gets going. But
Price appears to be a bit more consistent.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I agree with that point. But it's just good to get the win, obviously, but not in the way you win. I mean, you can win ugly and still win, right? But I mean, and people might say it's a 15-point game. How is it win ugly? It's still win ugly in a game like that, right? Like to me, it's still win ugly at least. So, but you win ugly, you still win, right? But
they're 2-0, and that's a fact, James. And they're probably going to be 3-0 after Tuesday.
Definitely, in South Dakota, obviously.
No guarantees there.
No guarantee for sure, but that's another game obviously you should have, and it's at home, obviously. And I seen you post a picture of the crowd, so I didn't look it was very.
Yeah, that was not my picture. I was not at the game, and
I know you seen you post a picture of somebody who sent it to you from the crowd. I mean, but you posted a picture of the crowd from the game. That's what I meant.
They sent it to me, and I figured it would get some hot responses, and of course it did. And there'd be the people that would say, "Why are we still talking about crowd size?" I just think it's amazing. And I'll tweet what I want to tweet, but I just think it's amazing when you look at that, and it's like, wasn't that arena full last night? Am I wrong in that? Wasn't it full last night?
Yeah, and it's full last night, and also. I don't know. I feel like it's been what we've been dealing with the whole time for the men, and it's unfortunate for them. Obviously, I know they play for the crowd. It'd be better to have a bigger crowd in there for them, for those guys. But it's also like they still have support no matter what from the people outside. But it's just tough to see because it's like you want to see the fans there support them, right? Because they support them in a lot of other things, right? Football's a different sport, right? But I'm just naming sport: football, women's basketball, wrestling, right? You see them support them in other sports, right? And it's like that's the sport where I feel like the core sports, right? Those 4 I said, they don't get as much support in, if that makes sense.
Nope, good stuff, James. Like I said to Doug, and I'll repeat the same thing to you. I think now we head into Game 3 and Game 4, if you count the exhibition, the clock is now ticking because you have real competition right around the corner. And with the schedule that France put together, once again, for the second straight year, it's not a loaded non-conference schedule. And it's going to be very hard to win that Iowa State game. So with very few opportunities at good wins in the non-con, you have to avoid bad losses. So they have to sweep all these gimme games. And I think they got to win at least 2 of 3 in the 3 neutral site games against Wazoo, Utah State, and Utah. I think you should win all 3 of them, but at least 2 and 1, because these are parts of the season that are going to come into play in early March when we're talking about this team at a maximum looks like a bubble team. They don't look to me like a surefire NCAA tournament team, and maybe that will change. But this league is deep, and it's not as top heavy, but it's deep. So, boy, there's things that need to be corrected, and Fran knows that. I'm sure his team got a talking to at halftime because that first half was ugly at times. And I did think they played better in the second half, and there are bright spots. Thelwell is a bright spot. Price is a bright spot. I still like Josh Dix, although I thought he struggled at times tonight. I'd like to see them pounded inside with Owen Freeman a bit more, and rebounding is a problem.
That's one thing. And one more thing I kind of have a point on too, because you brought it up, and I was just going to bring up too, but you already brought the name up too, was Drew Thelwell. And the fact of, I feel like I don't want to wait too long to put him in the starting up. And I get people with Brock as a sophomore, right? But I feel like Drew might help this team a little bit more in the fact of us getting out to better starts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Fran obviously likes the high assist to turnover ratio that Brock brings to the game, and I get that, but does it account for the liability from a scoring perspective and from mostly a defensive perspective?
Yeah, that's what I meant by getting out to better starts. I feel like that gives you more, a little bit of scoring. So maybe he pours in like 4 points earlier than what you get, and gives you takes away 4 points on defense, and maybe get out to that earlier start, and maybe that gives us more momentum to carry on quicker and maybe get these games that we should be winning by more. That's kind of my point of if you no, because 4 points early, if you make an 8-point swing early because you started somebody that could change the whole outcome of the game, right? Especially against a team you should win.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm totally in agreement with you, and don't be surprised. They got 4 days now to evaluate this, work at fixing things, but also look at the tape and make potentially some changes, especially if Seidu's ready to go. I don't think Seidu's not going to come in and start right away, but maybe they look at the tape and say, hey, we want to start Drew. But yeah, I don't know. You hate to have to experience loss before changes are made. And these have been 2 relatively comfortable wins, but I can see the other side of it, like people complaining about how many points they've been giving up, how many threes they've given up to both of these 2 Division I teams they've played to start, and then the lack of rebounding. But that's not going to be fixed by a lineup change, because Drew Thelwell is not going to get you a lot on the glass. But I do think he can help you on the defensive end. And
yeah, but I mean, Brock ain't gonna get you much on the glass either. He's like 5'10", so it's not changing either way. And that aspect of the game, I meant.
Yeah, and let me just make that very clear. He's not giving you anything on the glass.
Yeah.
He's not going to give you anything. Just like Jordan Bohannon was really not. Although Jordan, I thought, worked on his rebounding and got better as his career panned out. But no, Brock's not going to get you anything on the glass. Jess did bring it up on the broadcast. Drew is long, so that helps him on the defensive end. It's going to help him finishing around the rim, and it could potentially help you as a guard who can go in and crash at times. But that's not going to be the case with Brock. Brock's got good chemistry with Owen. It's a good friend of his. They played in high school together, and he does find a way to put together high assist to turnover ratios. I saw John Rothstein tweet out something earlier today, James, about Brock Harding and how he's a guy to watch. And, I'm rooting for Brock Harding, but I'm just calling it like I see it. I think right now, go with the older seasoned guy that you brought in as a grad transfer who has won a ton of games and has a ton of D1 experience, because I think you're going to need that experience once you hit tougher times against Iowa State and against Big Ten folk.
Yeah, that's always the way I looked at it. And to be honest with you, I thought when he came in, because he's a grad transfer, so my thinking was when he came in, he was going to be a starter because he's a grad transfer, right? Like, you don't see a lot of grad transfers go somewhere and then come off the bench, right? Like, that's just how it works. So in my head, I automatically thought he was going to be a starter anyways when he transferred, because he was a grad transfer. I was like, okay, he's probably going to start. And he's not. But I do like the way he's holding his demeanor, even though he's not starting, right? He's not holding his head. He's not making it a big deal that he's not starting. He's still playing great basketball, he's playing with his head still on his shoulders, playing at level-headed, he's not letting it get to him that he's not starting. And that's also something big too.
And let's make this clear. He did play substantially more minutes than Brock. So Brock played 15, Drew played 25. So
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's like Gary Cole says. Like, it really doesn't matter who is starting. It more matters who's in the game more, which is true as well, too. But I'm saying maybe that start, because I feel like we started out kind of slow these last couple games, that, like, maybe he can change a little bit at the start of the game as well, too, with, like I said, just turn around the game, maybe giving you a couple points here and taking away a couple points on defense because he plays better defense than Brock, so he takes a couple points away from the other team that we're playing. So that was my only point there, but...
Well, James, appreciate you calling in, sir, and I'm guessing we'll talk to you tomorrow night after football.
Yeah, that's the plan for sure. And I know you got a long week, so everybody keep supporting. I know Cory's been there for us, and it's a long time. I know we got one Saturday and our Sunday for the women, then you got another one Tuesday for the men. So you don't get much time to yourself around these days. But
November's a busy month, but this is what I signed up for, so we'll take it as it comes, and I'll enjoy every minute of it.
Yeah, for sure. Enjoy your night.
Thanks, James. All right, Ask a Bum with the super chat. Drew Thelwell is becoming Drew Threewell. Good stuff. Chris says, too many turnovers. Love the 3-point shooting. Could echo that as well. And Amanda says, no way we beat Iowa State. Boy, that would be nice. And 2 years ago, a lot of people didn't expect Iowa to win that game, and they took Iowa State to task at home. This is a different type of Iowa State team. They are loaded, experienced, a lot of transfers, but TJ Otzelberger has done a terrific job there. Iowa defeating Southern this evening, 89-74. And, of course, we've got our postgame coverage because of this guy right here, Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. If you need better insurance coverage, and who doesn't, or maybe a better price on your insurance policies, you give Brad a call and see what he can do for you, auto, homeowners, life, and more. 515-256-6480. We could not do this without Brad and his support. Visit him online at www.bradvanmeter.com, or you can visit his office at 4229 Fleur Drive in Des Moines. Again, that's Brad Van Meter at State Farm in Des Moines. The Hawkeyes with a 15-point victory behind another solid night from Peyton Sandfort, although he did add the 6 turnovers, so that was a bit of a bugaboo on his stat line. 4 of 11 from 3, 17 points, 7 assists, 8 rebounds, did draw 4 fouls, was called for 3. Owen Freeman with 21 minutes, 15 points to go along with 8 rebounds, was called for 4 fouls. That's an ongoing storyline to follow. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. Laji Dembele, 5 points, 29 minutes, 2 of 5 from the field, was called for 3 fouls. Can't have 7 fouls between those two guys. Way too important, especially without Traore. Brock Harding played 15 minutes, 6 assists, no turnovers, but he's not giving you anything in the scoring column. And he's not going to give you anything in the rebounding column. Gave you 1 assist, and he's not going to give you any blocks. So it is what it is with Brock. Fran obviously likes his ability to facilitate and take care of the ball, but at what point does the experience and scoring ability of Drew Thelwell and defensive prowess override what Brock's given you, at least as far as being the starter? Drew played more minutes. Drew Thelwell off the bench, 25 points, 4 of 8 from the field, 3 of 7 from 3, 12 points for Drew, 2 assists, 1 turnover. Evan Bronze played a couple of minutes, did not log any stats. I did miss Josh Dix. He played 36 minutes. I didn't think he played great, but he ended up with 14 points, 5 assists, 2 turnovers, a steal, and a block. Price Sandfort, he was the player of the game. 8 of 10 from the field, including 6 of 8 from 3. 22 points for the younger Sandfort, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, no turnovers. And then the freshman Cooper Koch played about 9 minutes, had 1 point, a free throw, did not log any other stats besides a foul drawn and a foul called on. Excuse me, he did have 2 assists, no turnovers. So that's positive for the young freshman, the son of the great J.R. Koch. The Hawkeyes shot 53% from the field, 45% from 3. Did struggle at the free throw line a bit, 58% from the line, just got there 12 times. That number's got to go up. Iowa got out-rebounded by 1. That number's got to be improved upon. Didn't really turn the ball over, just 12 turnovers tonight. So I have to go back to game 1. I think that's an improvement, but Commerce had a ton of turnovers in game 1. I will say this, though. Southern turned it over less times than Iowa did. Iowa was -1 in that category, and they gave up 32% from 3 and 48% for the game from the field. Southern also missed 9 free throws. Only lost by 15, missed 9 free throws. So all noteworthy things to think about and take away from this game. The Hawkeyes will be back on the court On Tuesday, they'll play the last game of the 3-game series, the Kenny Arnold Classic inside Carver against South Dakota, Tuesday night. So we will be back for post-game coverage next week for men's basketball, but we're not going anywhere this week. We've got Iowa and UCLA, the football game tomorrow night from the Rose Bowl out in Pasadena. Be sure you tune in, folks, because it's going to be myself and Coach Don Patterson after the game for Iowa postgame with Coach Don Patterson. A kickoff for 8 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Central Time Friday night. Short prep week, and the travel out west should be a challenge for the Hawkeyes going up against the Bruins. Again, thank you to Brad Van Meter, our sponsor, and all of you for being here. If you're interested in contributing to the efforts to supply and provide this type of post-game coverage and everything else we do here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, you can buy our merch, you can subscribe to the channel, you can like the video. That's a simple way to donate and to contribute and to support. Definitely hit that like button, and of course, you can become a premium subscriber or donate. There are links to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, all in the description. Every little donation does help, folks. So you hate to beg for donations, but certainly I'll ask kindly that you do that and support our sponsors. The Hawkeyes winning tonight over Southern University, 89-74. Fran squad back in action in 4 days. I will talk to you tomorrow, and I'll be coming out with my score prediction for the Hawkeyes and the Bruins tomorrow morning. Have a great night, and we will talk to you tomorrow.